Hey, City of Ocoee, you have a serious problem. Let's talk about it. So I attended your last city council meeting, and here's how that went.
It's strange, and it's mighty strange that you would book Founders Day. It's mighty strange. No, sir. Point of order. You're out of order. No, I'm not.
All right, now it's my turn. You talked a while ago. You talked now.
You cut me off.
Yes, sir, I did. You talked a while ago. So you asked to explain that.
Well, no,
You explained
you brought
the
it
same
back to me.
thing.
You
You
brought it back to me.
explained the same thing.
Founders Day is November the 6th and 7th.
The first week in November.
No, it's not. It's the second week. It's the second weekend in November. So it's not the same weekend, sir. It's the second week.
The 6th and 7th, the first weekend in
No, it's
November.
not.
It
No
didn't die.
second,
It didn't
sir.
die. Hold on,
Yes,
it's not
it did.
dead. It is
It's
not dead.
I'll second it.
It's second. There you go.
Who's
There's a
second?
I did.
You did it too late.
So the public cannot speak on this
No,
motion
sir.
before we vote
No,
on it.
sir. All in favor?
So wait a minute, so-
Commissioner Oliver, I'm asking.
So my
for the
question
vote.
is, could you
All in
tell me,
favor?
show me,
It-
it's just a motion on the floor. It should be public comment because we have a motion on the floor. So there's no compromise.
Well, there is compromise. We moved it from November 2nd.
That's on a Monday.
It would have been that weekend, sir. It would have been.
And as one of the most important men that you know was Martin Luther King, and what he said was, can't we all just get along?
It was Rodney King.
It was one of the kings.
Get along.
It was one of the kings.
No, but they were different. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man. It was one of them.
Pretty embarrassing, right? And that's probably why, as of the recording of this video, that one is now unlisted, meaning it is not viewable to the public unless you have the link to that video saved to your phone. You cannot access it. But I found it beforehand and put the link in the description so you can watch it for yourself. I got y'all. For those of you that don't know the city history, let's go back 99 years ago to November 2nd, 1920, aka the Ocoee Massacre. A black man by the name of Most Norman tried to vote, and when he got to the polls, white people pistol whipped him and sent him on his way along with all the other black voters. But then they decided that wasn't good enough. So then a literal white mob decided to track Norman down to the house of a man by the name of July Perry. And when they broke into his house, Mr. Perry did what all good homeowners should do. He shot all three of them. 2 died, 1 lived. To put it in modern day terms, it's 3 dudes walking up.
But it's just me. Mine's just 2.
For defending his home, family, and friend, Perry was then arrested and then thrown in jail. But once again, these people decided that wasn't good enough. So after sending out a battle cry to Disney and back, racists from all over Orlando showed up to where Perry was jailed, snatched him out of his cell, lynched him, and then riddled his body with bullets at the same time. Now the mob once again decided they couldn't let it go and they weren't done yet. They then moved on to terrorize the original citizens of Ocoee. Burned buildings, killed men, women, children, you know, typical terrorist activity. Those who survived were driven out, and the mob basically claimed that territory as their own. Or as we like to put in history books, discovered it. Why is this important? Because every year the city celebrates Founders Day, which if you celebrate it, you should know that your entire festival is built on hatred, lies, racism, and bigotry. And the people you celebrate aren't founders, they are thieves. Now, recently, the city has tried to right its wrongs by coming up with this proclamation, basically acknowledging their wrongdoing and saying that those actions were regrettable, and that any public event held in that first week of November will recognize the tragedy that happened. This was overseen and signed by your mayor. So now the question comes full circle of asking, why on earth would y'all host Founders Day on the same week of the 100-year anniversary of the Ocoee Massacre? Oh, and fun fact, just so y'all know, the state of Florida did not recognize Ocoee as a city until May of 1925. So to host this festival on the centennial anniversary of this slaughter is nothing more than a disrespect to the city, an embarrassment to its citizens, and a slap in the face to those who were killed that tragic day and have relatives that are still alive today. Speaking of ancestors, I know some of you are genuinely watching this thinking, well, if we're trying to grow and move on from these things, why do we keep visiting the past? Because it affects our future. July Perry, we know for a fact, has descendants that are alive today. Well, so does Sam Salisbury. Who is this, you might ask? This is the man who kicked in July Perry's door and fired the first shot. We know because it is documented in many places that this man, until his death, proudly bragged and boasted about his parts in the events that took place that day. This is also the man that Perry shot but lived, and whose fragile racist ego drove him to gather a mob to carry out the events that would later on happen that day, after catching a bullet. I bring this up because this man was an Orlando police chief and former Ocoee City mayor. His picture is currently hanging up at a police station and in Ocoee City Hall right now, loud and proud. This man also has descendants that are alive right now, one of whom was very close in relation to someone on your city council. If you don't see the problem with that, that's like, I don't even have an analogy for that. If you don't see the problem with it, I can't help you. Now, if you're watching this and you're outraged, here comes the fun part.
It's going to be who up here. And I'll tell you about the citizens. I have had umpteen calls and emails about that from citizens.
Yes.
So if you want to put it out to the public, then we'll have a public meeting and bring them all here.
Well, you heard the man, so I might as well make this announcement. City Hall has a city council meeting on January 7th that is open to the public where you can come and make yourself heard. And as stated on the website, Basically, anyone who wants to speak on a topic on the agenda has the right to do so immediately after that issue has been talked about. You get 5 minutes each. They didn't follow that rule last time, they just skipped ahead. The goal here is change the date. If you would like to make yourself heard but you can't make the meeting, here's some phone numbers for City Hall that you can contact. If they leave you on hold forever, don't worry, I got you. There's an email address you can go to as well. And before anyone tries to blow this out of proportion or report me into oblivion, this is not any kind of violent call to action or anything like that. I am just informing people of the political processes accessible to them so that they can make themselves heard, because clearly if we leave it to local media, they're just going to let us down. I'm also not aligned with any team, entity, or group. My words are my own and speak and represent only me. I'm not a politician. Just a kid from a small town who's spreading information that he thinks more people should hear. Enjoy your weekend.